Sorry, Ellen, I think you may have to push the button again. I'm not sure.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Calling to order the May 1st, 2023 meeting of the Woodstock Finance Committee. Our agenda is as follows: call to order, additions or deletions, citizen comments. We have two items for new business: the priorities for 2023 and the process for reviewing issues presented to the select board, which I will explain. It's a brief discussion. In terms of additions or deletions to the agenda, I have one, which is to simply update the group on the staffing of the committee, and also to update us on the last meeting, which, well, I want just the staffing of the committee. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, are there, and it's not clear if we have a quorum or not, but we're treating this as if we do have a quorum. If not, then we will continue our business at the next meeting. Are there any citizen comments? And apologies to all of you, by the way. This is John Spector. I'm not visible. My camera is not working, and I have a cold, so I can't come into town hall. All right, hearing no citizen comments, two items of new business. The first is priorities for 2023, and I'll go back and share just by way of history. About 6 weeks ago, some members of the finance committee met with the town manager and Zoe Parent, the town financial person, and we talked about our objectives. We also talked about how much time commitment we were going to spend. Kareem, in particular, thought that it was important to understand what the time commitment might be and how much work we were trying to take on and so forth. And so this was the outcome of the discussion. Now, before I explain this and we go through it, the purpose of today's meeting is really to review this, to modify it as we see fit, and to communicate back to the town manager and Zoe that this is what we think we should be spending our time on in 2023. If everyone agrees, that's great. If they don't, I suppose we can take it to the select board and you know, refine it. But before we talk about what our priorities are, I would like to just briefly give some feedback that I got from Eric Duffy, our town manager, about the process of setting our priorities. At the last meeting, at which Jill, Tom, and I were there, and unfortunately Kareem was also there. He's not in today's discussion. Eric was a little confused because we, the members of the finance committee, were kind of not all over the place, but weren't precisely aligned on exactly what it was we thought the priorities should be. And Eric asked that we kind of speak with one voice. So hence, that sounds like a good thing. And so I think the purpose of today's meeting is first for us to decide with all of the members here, or as many as can make it, what we think we should be working on. And I've had some, and then secondly, to agree that even if we don't, to agree that what comes out of this is clear and focused and that we all will adhere to it. We all, I think, have priorities that are slightly different. They're all valid, and in the long run, they're all very relevant to what I think the Finance Committee's mission is. But I think we have way too much work to do in 1 year, and we have to parse it out over, frankly, many years, because it has taken many decades of operating the way the town has operated to get us where we are today. It's not going to get us out of that hole, with due respect, in 1 or 2 years. It's not going to take 10, but so I think we need to be focused. So whatever we argue, each of us argue what our priorities should be, let's just agree that hopefully at the end of this meeting we can set aside whatever our pet priorities are, if they're not in the majority, and say, okay, this is the 2 or 3 things that we're going to focus on for 2023. So with that in mind, here's what we agreed to, those of us that were at this meeting, at the last meeting, that I think everyone, including, I've heard some feedback from the select board, that our participation in the budget process is valuable. We have some time now to schedule it in advance. We can talk about the scheduling of it and how to make it better. at a subsequent discussion. But I think we all agreed that we should participate again in the budget process. Let me just go through all of these and then we can just open it up for discussion. Management reporting and forecasting, in my opinion, is the single most important thing that we can do. And that basically is monthly and annually creating financial reports that the select board, the management team, and the community can understand. The third is just time put towards our meetings. I think we have set this time, the first Monday of each month at 1 p.m. From 1 to 2:30 as our standard meeting time. Not everyone can make it this time because we set it up, not too long ago. But going forward, we've reserved the conference room at this time slot for each month. And then the other items which are somewhat smaller the other items are an update to the capital improvement plan, a development of a long-term plan, and funding options for the capital improvement plan and everything else. And then an initiative on police department data collection, which other things that were mentioned. And by the way, that means that we would each commit about 1 day a month, not a full day, but about 5 to 8 hours a month, if we have the full 7 members. And I should mention that Jonathan Wilson has stepped down. He doesn't feel he has the time to commit to it. He has agreed to provide advice, particularly Jill, on the capital plan, but on anything that we would like. And I think at our last meeting, we talked about that was valuable input from him. So I put his name down next to the long-term plan which is, I think, where the advice is most needed. Sorry.
Can I just make a comment? The
Sure.
police department data collection was not a separate project. It's part of the budget. We didn't understand the police budget when it came to us. So we would like to collect some more information before Robbie leaves, but it's not a separate project.
Okay, so we just make it 70 hours for the budget process, and that's fine. Let me just make sure to make hold on 1 second. I'm sorry that my camera is not on, so you can't see me, looking into the camera or not, but police part of budget. Okay. Some of the other items that were mentioned were, what is CBA, Jill? Does that, or Tom, does it ring a bell?
CBA.
Yeah,
CBA, under this item here, CBA for.
I believe it was something that Eric mentioned, that he would appreciate a review of at some stage.
A review of our financial software.
His something that he was suggested, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one item: a dashboard for the town website and benchmarking analysis. Starting perhaps with police and highway, but sort of starting with a couple of departments. I will say right off the bat that I have been a strong advocate for benchmarking analysis, and I will gladly say that we should not do it this year because of how important I think management reporting and forecasting is, and how far behind we are in that.
Yeah.
So now for the rest of the discussion, let's decide. Hopefully there aren't too many more things we would add to this list, but if there are, that's fine. Let's try to make sure we understand what these are, and which of these items we definitely want to include as the priorities. I'll argue that the first two, start off briefly and then turn them. I'll argue that the first two are essential and that they have to be included. Well, I guess the third one has to be technically, because we can't, without meeting, we can't do the first two. The budget process, I think, speaks for itself. Again, we can improve upon it, and we have between now and September-ish to think about ways to do that. Management reporting and forecasting. Jill, I just share at a high level the exchange that you and I had.
Yes.
There's a meeting tomorrow night of the select board and trustees to go over the results of the audit. Jill has, I think, read the audit in great detail. I have read it, read through it once. I cannot answer the first question about how the town is performing financially from the printed report. And I can tell you, and the printed report is 40 pages long. I can tell you, and it was released 9 months after the end of our fiscal year. And I can tell you that in my organization, the last organization I ran was 10 times the size of the conference board. It's still small, but 10 times the size. We operated in, well, legally we operated in 5 different countries and we operated in different currencies. We had a dozen lines of businesses, and we knew within 7 days at the end of every month how we were doing on a monthly basis. And at the end of and there were never any adjustments to our, the audit was not used as the financial report. It isn't a financial report. The audit is designed to answer the question, are our accounts accurate? It doesn't answer the question, how are we doing? And right now, the only way that Jill can figure out how we're doing, and by the way, I don't think, Jill, you could completely figure that out. I can't figure it out at all.
I can't.
Is to look at the audit. So we are literally flying blind. And so we have no history, we have no trends, no one to say that, so I think that if all we did, and by the way, I think the infrastructure of creating a financial report is sort of decrepit. It's not non-existent, but it's decrepit. It has to be, it's like a plumbing system that has to be cleaned out. So there's a lot of work to do. So I would be comfortable. So anyway, I believe that those first 3 items are absolutely necessary. I think that the next 2, because police department is off the list, really, it's part of item number 1. The next 2 are also very important, and I think we can do more than 2 things at a time. So broadly speaking, I would support what we agreed, the top half of this list, not adding anything to it. That basically we would be doing 3 things: the budget process, routine management reporting and forecasting, and long-term planning. And I want to call it long-term planning because I believe that the capital plan is the reason for the capital plan is so we can have a long-term plan, but a long-term plan includes more than the capital plan. So those 3 things, that's what I would argue. So now let's open it up. Or anyone who,
could I speak for a second? I think on the long-term capital improvement plan update, having only 10 hours doesn't seem realistic. I was going over what Sarah Macy coordinated for us, and it seems to me that the process, we're in danger of losing all the good work if we don't keep it updated. The whole theory was we would, at the end of the annual budget process that we finished a few months ago, we would then change the first year of the capital improvement plan and replace it with the budget that was agreed. And then we would add on an additional year at the end, meanwhile reviewing. So it seems to me that's going to take a lot more than 10 hours. And I would think the process would be that each asset owner would be given a schedule to update, and then that would be coordinated, and we would come up with a revised capital improvement plan, which we would have to have vetted by the select board.
Or there's another way of doing it, Tom. So somehow I believe that the information that is required to update the capital improvement plan was collected during the budget process. But because the 2 things were treated separately when they're really not, the capital improvement plan, actual physical document was not updated. But I'm a little at a loss for words because I wouldn't know where to start, because we have a budget process that's based on data that is not credible. We have management reports that you would like to look at that are non-existent. So the simple question is, how did we do in FY22 against the budget? We still don't know the answer to that question.
Well, someone knows, to be fair, right? Someone knows, just we can't read the reports. I don't know that anyone on the management team, I think if we talked to the auditors and spent an hour, we could figure it out, which is unacceptable. We should have to spend a second, not an hour, but.
But it's not in the audit.
Well, no, I
Right,
believe.
without going there.
Yeah. Keep going,
Okay.
sorry.
And then, yes, my heart sinks when I think about the capital improvement plan not being updated, because it isn't anybody's responsibility. So I think the how of how we do all of these things has to be talked about, but I just don't know how to prioritize them because they all seem to fit together. So maybe what would be helpful is what's the start point here?
Well, I would, sorry, I don't want to, well, if no one else has anything, I would say that there are two pieces that the general sequence of the three broad things I talked about were management reporting and assuming that the budget process comes later and that we don't spend a lot of time redesigning it. Because it's not completely broken.
Yeah.
That we basically do two things in order to do a third. And maybe we divide and conquer, and maybe, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but maybe Ellen, you and I work on management reporting and forecasting. And Jill and Tom.
I think if we work on that, the budget, I mean, that's what the budget draws on when you go to do the budget.
Exactly. Well, it draws on two things, I think: management reporting and forecasting, and the capital improvement plan, which is a capital part of it. But so I'm thinking, go ahead.
But before you go there, John, I don't believe that Tom and I can do it. I think it's a Sarah Macy task because she's the one who understands it.
No, fine.
Agreed. I agree with that 100%. I think I spent some time today reviewing this, and I think we should engage her or recommend that we engage her right away.
Well, we budgeted for it, but we don't know whether she's available. We haven't had good feedback on that.
Well, but if it can't be her, well, okay. Well, I guess what I'm suggesting is if the two of you, the reason why if the two of you were to do what it takes to get the capital improvement plan in shape, assuming that it isn't that it requires Sarah Macy, and if that you would then pursue that, and Ellen and I, which involves Sarah Macy, Ellen and I, in order to get the management reporting and forecasting work, I don't think we need Sarah Macy, but we do need some time of Zoe, and Zoe's time is scarce. And so, but I think at least those two things, if we had to sequence things, we can do those two things in parallel. And then the long-term plan can relatively quickly be assembled, or at least a scenario, a model that we can refine, can be fairly quickly put together that takes into account the information from those two pieces. So sort of dividing and so just to keep it simple, leave the budget. The budget process is the fourth thing we're going to do. We're going to do it starting in September or October. Until then, we're going to do three things. First, phase one is management reporting and forecasting. Maybe that's me and Ellen. And capital improvement plan. Maybe that's Jill and Tom and Sarah.
Yeah.
And then the long-term plan. And, go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to ask a question that I perhaps should know the answer to, but the long-term capital improvement plan had a process where Sarah and we interviewed the different asset owners, highway department, et cetera, and came up with categories for the next 6 years. Are the categories in that long-term capital plan the same as the categories in the budget?
I think we could pretty much guarantee that they're not.
But in them, I don't think it's that bad. I do think they are mainly the same. But this is where you go back to your budget process, right? Because the budget should include people referring to the long-term plan, so that, because they did all this work once and then we did the budget like it was a completely separate thing.
Yeah, Tom, I think categorization will be easy. We don't. I would not the capital plan, and let's just get a sense of the scope of it, right? I mean, the capital plan is going to have how many, let's say you didn't have any idea what the categories were in the budget. You only knew the departments, which will be the same. How many categories will there be in the capital plan? More than 10 or single digit?
More than 10.
More than 100?
I think there are, in terms of individual assets and plans for those assets, more than 100, yes.
Okay. More than 500?
I don't think so.
Okay, so 100 to 500 assets. And how many categories?
I would say 10.
Well,
I wish there were more.
Let me put it to you. Wish there were more. How many? If our objective is to be able in 3 or 4 pages to explain to anyone, starting from no information other than an understanding of dollar, from no information to understand how the town is doing and where it's going, how many categories would you need? Could you do it in 10 categories, not assets?
I think you should be able to, yeah.
So I guess my sense is we don't need to coordinate that now. Come up with the categories based on the assets, not based on the budget, and then we'll change. In other words,
well, John, let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
I think, speaking as someone who was on the capital budget committee, I was very thrilled actually with Sarah's work and the way she categorized things. And I think, to me, a goal would be to make the budget process categorize things in the same way. And I know that's not an absolute. I'm sure Sarah isn't 100% right and the budget's 100% wrong. But I think one of our tasks for this budget process is to have congruency between the capital, long-term capital plan categories and the budget categories.
I agree. Sorry. What I'm saying is that I think we can do that at the end. We don't have to, we can do that as we launch the budget process. Sorry, let me step back. I'm mired in a detail, but it's operationally, I think, important. The foundation of both the foundation of our budget is a set of 1,750 accounts. Everything, whether it's capital or operations, in the end, it goes into one of those accounts. Actually, with capital, it's even more than that. So there's several thousand accounts. It's not possible to, that cannot be, that is currently and cannot be in the future our financial reporting system. It can be our accounting system. And it may need to be our budget worksheet system, but it can't be our financial reporting system. The financial reporting,
I agree.
Right? The financial reporting system, we can reckon. What I think is most important is that the financial reporting system integrate the capital improvement plan for that given year, the operational expenses for that given year, and revenues, and the long-term plan, and all of those things have to be using the same categories, so that we can answer the management questions. It's going to take quite some time and effort to change the budget categories to line up and make it easy to get that financial reporting. It's sort of a mapping exercise. I would leave that. So in other words, I wouldn't focus on the accounting system. So therefore we can, since we're going to build, we don't have a management reporting system. We only have an accounting system. We're going to build from scratch a management reporting system. We're going to create the categories. And so we can ensure the finance committee is going to do that. No one else is going to do it. They've for 35 years, they haven't done it. So if we can define it, my only point is that we can ensure, since the capital line items in the management reporting are going to be taken directly from the capital improvement plan. They're going to be cut and pasted directly from the capital improvement plan. By definition, the two will be in sync at the management reporting level. And let's not worry when they get in sync at the accounting level, because it might be not this year. Does that make sense?
That's okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
So the things that the select board sees, the things that the community sees, the things that get presented at the budget meeting, which will not be the audit, All of those things will be the management reporting information. And that will be a summation of however many of the 2000s of accounts that we have to combine in order to have a vehicles line in our long-term plan, or whatever lines, whatever long-term capital lines you guys decide. So so it's really just a question of, so that's the level that we should get synchronicity first. And then we can say, okay, let's, and actually, to be honest, and then let's work on the accounting efficiency. We have way too many accounts. We're using NIMRIC wrongly, but accurately. So does that concept make sense? And Alan, does that concept make sense to you? Because you're going to be.
Yes.
So
It seems to me, though, that we are using NIMRIC wrongly, though.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have all the change, the audit would not be different from what's in the system.
Correct. And I guess what I'm saying is,
and one of the biggest obstacles is that we have to close those accounting periods and keep them closed.
Yeah.
So there has to be cooperation.
And then is this where that other piece comes in, that we need, before the books are closed, I'm sorry, I don't know enough about accounting, but before the books are closed, should you be moving your capital reserve funds into your P&L so that you actually know where you are?
In the accounting report?
The P&L is a report. It's a management report that's created from the accounts.
So
once you put something in an account, you never move it.
Well, okay, but we do have these things called capital reserve funds. So let me give a really simple example. The public trust funds write a check for $3,000 each year that is put into the capital reserve funds or the general funds, but it is to be used by the cemetery for the cemetery expenses that are over and above the budget expenses. That money is sitting in the capital reserve account called cemetery and has not been moved for FY22 into the general accounts. So the cemetery is showing as $7,000 over the budget.
Right.
That $7,000 is sitting in the capital reserves.
Right. That right in the management report. So so there are two things that need to be done. One is that the management report should fix that. The management report should say that the cemetery is funded. It's not $7,000 in the hole. It has been funded. Now, there's two ways for the management report to do that. One is to know that it's not in the cemetery account and to go get it in the capital reserve account. And the other way is to move it into the cemetery account and then just report on the cemetery account. And and doing the latter thing which isn't routinely done, I guess, is what Ellen means by we're using NIMRIC wrong and we're not closing the books. But but to fix that, so to fix this, what we need, and this is unfortunately going down into the accounts, we need a monthly closing process. The reason why we have all these things, and Ellen mentioned this, basically, we need a monthly closing process. One of the things that monthly closing process would do, Jill, is move that money.
Okay.
So the problem is that a monthly closing process is the opposite of how we work. So Ellen, I mean, Ellen knows this better than I do. Well, I mean, I know it on the receipt.
In accounting, we call it housekeeping. Okay. So you do a preliminary close, then you do all the housekeeping, and then you do the final. Okay. So maybe that's part of the housekeeping, moving sums of money around like that. But it's something that you do. It's something that you do every month.
Right. Roger, go ahead.
Not just when the audit happens.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
Sorry,
Ellen. I cut you. Let me just give. Ellen, did you? I can't really see. I can see you, but are you done? I didn't want to cut you off. And then Roger.
No, that was it.
Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, just to weigh in as hopefully a consumer of the information that you're putting together. From a perhaps naive perspective, I see this as two very different things. One is accounting efficiency and being able to ultimately get a clean audit, which is obviously very important. But for me as a citizen, what's most important is the management reporting and metrics on how we're doing and where money is going and how we're planning to do money. So I would definitely applaud looking very carefully and spending as much time as possible on management reporting that gives both the people doing budgeting and the citizenry of a good understanding of how money is being spent, how money is being planned to be spent, and the efficiency and kind of metrics that we might come up with. So, you know, and that's not to downplay the importance of good accounting practices. But I would advocate as strongly as possible for doing as much of the management reporting stuff as you possibly can.
Right.
Not necessarily getting to a dashboard or something at this point, but having a monthly report and then something like an annual report before the budget is approved that gives everybody, you, me, and everybody else in the town, as good a possible a picture of how their money is being spent.
Yeah. I agree completely. The trick here is that it takes work to do the housekeeping that Ellen's describing. In other words, to produce a monthly report on the 15th of a month that tells how we're doing year to date up to the end of the prior month, on May 15th to say how we're doing July through April, which is, by the way, much longer than a company would take, 15 days, but that's fine. I mean, I think 15 days would be fine. There's a lot of work to do in those 15 days to close the books accurately every month.
Right.
And so and we don't have a way, we don't currently do that. So we have three choices, I think, all of which are unappealing. We can keep operating monthly the way we do, in which case our management reports will be clear, but they may not be completely accurate. Right? They might miss the $7,000 that Joe was describing. We can put in the work to do the monthly closing, but we may then not have capacity to do the management reporting, or we can pay money to do both, or find some way to do both. And I'm just guessing here. I think what we need to do as a committee is sit down with Eric and possibly with the select board and basically say, look, here's what we think we want to accomplish, just in English terms. It's really simple terms. I think we've sort of laid that out. We could make it more articulate. Here's what we want to accomplish, and here's why. And really, it is the consumer perspective. The select board set us up because they're like you, Roger. They're looking at the stuff and they can't figure out what's going on. So this is what we want to accomplish. Here are the most important steps to accomplish it. We need the following resources or process or support or volunteers or something to get it done. Or alternatively, we get it done over a couple of years. And the first year, we don't, we put together the management reporting, but we acknowledge that the monthly, the numbers will get changed with the audit. And maybe the staff will tell us, the changes aren't that great, that we'll get a reasonable picture of it. I just don't know. Sorry, Joe.
Can I suggest something as a non-accountant? If you were to do that monthly housekeeping and reconciliation each quarter, do you save any work, or do you just do triple work each quarter?
Ellen, what do you think?
Well, in the end, you have to have your accounts accurate. So you've either done it all along and you get to the end of the year and then you don't really have to do anything. Or it seems like we're not doing anything during the year and then we're scrambling at the end to fix everything. So it's
might be more
one way or the other.
It might be more, it might not be fewer hours of work. It might be more palatable somehow to do it quarterly. That's an interesting idea, I think.
I still worry about people's memories. In one of the organizations I work in, we have to do it every month because we can't remember one month to the next.
Right. You also can, at least in my organizations, there are, it's, yeah, no, well, sorry. It's a very good point. Are there any other issues we haven't touched on? I know, Jill, you've only got 15 more minutes. Are there any other priorities beyond what we've been talking about that people feel a burning desire that they have to be on the list, or do we at least have the major task?
Well, so this goes back to, you're trying to fly an airplane and learn how to do it at the same time. But we're making decisions every day about bonds and loans, and we don't have a way of making those decisions. So, John, we sat in a meeting the other day, and they were debating whether to do a 10-year loan or a 15-year loan. What was the outcome of that NPV discussion?
I met, that one was fairly easy. I met with Eric and Joe Swanson. I built them a little NPV model. They understood it and they took it. And
the answer?
Well, the answer was that it was, if interest rates are below 5% or below, it makes more sense to borrow shorter term.
Okay.
Thanks. I think that's right. It may, but it's possible that it was the other way around. But 5% was the break-even point where the NPV is higher. So they have that model in hand now.
Okay, but the thing that it brought up to me was that major financial decisions are being made every 2 weeks by the select board without being referred to the finance committee. But we have all these experts that can give the answers, and it doesn't seem very sensible.
So Eric brought this point up in that meeting and with Joe and me, and here's what we decide. I said I would take back to the finance committee, although I think it's sort of their decision more than ours, but it made sense to me. And I think I said to them that not everyone on the finance committee may agree with this, but what we suggested was when there are one-off decisions to be made, like that one, that it should come to the finance committee first and then go to the select board. But that when there are, even if they're big, if they're sort of things that have been done before or that, are in the normal course of the budget or so forth, that it can go to the select board first. And we should, we can be made aware of it because we attend select board meetings and so forth. I like that idea because it doesn't burden that when we're going to be able to add full value is when we've done the things we've just been talking for half an hour about doing. Until then, it's distracting. I agree it's valuable to have done the NPV analysis, but it's taking time away from the things on the screen. So I was comfortable that it's sort of on an exception, that if it's a new issue or a one-time issue, that it would come to us.
Right.
So, and by the way, we owe them a response to that. Are you all, is everyone okay with that? Or I don't feel strongly about it, but it seemed to make sense to me.
I think you have to put a dollar. I wonder if you should put a dollar amount on it. Like the one we were actually talking about is a fairly small one. That was at 650,000.
But still, there is a $20,000 a year cash flow implication of borrowing at different terms. The NPVs could be similar, but the cash flow is different. Borrowing over 15 versus 30 years.
Gosh, it's so difficult.
Well, if we're really going to be sophisticated about financial management, we have to look at this on a portfolio basis, where we're looking at the total debt service profile of the town and how an individual asset fits into that.
Agreed.
Because your decision may be not optimal for the asset alone, but optimal for the portfolio.
Agreed, but since we don't have a portfolio, well, I figured.
Well, we don't know the answer. We don't know what the portfolio.
No, I meant,
Right.
I meant that. I don't mean we don't have a portfolio. I mean, we don't have an easy way of knowing what the portfolio is until the long-term capital plan is finished. So I agree with you completely. answering the question for this specific asset. At least we could do it for this specific asset. So I think we just, I wouldn't make, Joe, would you be comfortable not making it more complicated? I don't think that we're going to have a problem that they're going to be sending too many things to us. They've never sent anything to us in advance, right? So I think that the fact that they're saying, look, if it's unique in one time, let's agree as a formal process, we'll go to the finance committee first, was a big step forward conceptually.
Yes.
Placing us in the right place in the process. We can tweak what comes to us later, but let's
try it on for size.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. So Alan, Thomas, or even Roger, if you want to comment, any major priorities that would edge out the short list that we've got on the top of this chart? That would knock something
Not
off
for me.
the list?
Nothing.
No. Roger, anything you?
No, I think this is, you know, given the fact that it's a limited number of people and a limited amount of time, I think this is the right set of priorities for sure.
Right. So I want to suggest then one immediate next step, which I think a group of people will do a better job of than any one individual. And I'm happy to start this off, but I would like to share it with all of you and get your input and editing. I don't think on the part of the select board that they know. I think what they know is that there is their discomfort, but I don't think they know what the solution looks like, which I think is largely in management reporting that includes a long-term capital plan. You know, I think that those who are experienced in municipal finance don't really believe in active financial management. I think they believe that their hands are basically tied, that there is a budget process. And they believe in that. And that once the budget is set, the year happens. As opposed to the year is then managed to happen. And I think that management reporting and forecasting is only valuable if you believe that your job isn't just the budget process, but your job is to manage to the budget once you've set it. And I don't think from what I can tell, I don't think that is unique to, I don't think it's a unique disadvantage of our municipal team. I think it's endemic to, I mean, everyone who I've met who manages Woodstock seems to believe that. So I think when we take this set of priorities, I think we go back to Eric and tell him just mechanically, this is what we're going to work on. We do need to get the what's her name, Sarah Macy's role clearly defined. But I do think that one of the things we're going to need to do is to just articulate and say, this is what we're going to get out of this. And this is why we think this is what we're going to get out of this, and we need this. And have that discussion with Eric and Zoe present, so that the select board and the trustees can say that. And I just think the language that we use and the way we describe it, which is going to be from Roger's perspective, not from our perspective or Eric's perspective. Roger as the proxy for the select, you know what I mean? It's going to be the consumer's perspective.
I just want to point out that this is exactly what we said when the finance committee was established.
Right.
So there's a block somewhere, and I think we're all hoping that Eric Duffy is the missing piece that will help make this smooth. But we have worked against these priorities for a long time, well, since we've been formed, and we haven't made any progress. So if we could just work out how we can make progress, it would be so helpful to everybody. Because right now it's very frustrating for us all. I think,
to be honest, I feel like part of it is that I'm not moving as the chair. I'm kind of, my time is split and divided, and I'm not kind of driving us forward on a scheduled basis that, you know, would get us more. First of all, I think we have made some progress, but I also think we haven't made nearly enough. And I think part of that is just I'm not driving it forward in that way. I would be happy to relinquish this and work, but and just spend that same time working on management reporting and forecasting, at least for the next year or so. And maybe so I'm just sort of throwing that out there in case that's an uncomfortable issue for any of you to raise. I think that's part of the problem. I just haven't had the capacity to drive it faster. I also think, by the way, that another person could only drive it so much faster because there are just limits. So I'm not trying to shoulder the whole responsibility, but I think that's part of it. So anyway, I'll just leave that out there. If anyone would like to drive it faster, let me know, and I will happily set it, step aside for anyone who's currently on the committee. By the way, we're going to have some new members. I think Tom Phillips. Tom, do you know Tom McCoy? Do you know Tom Phillips? Were you the one?
He's in the audience.
Oh, hello, Tom.
Hi, John. How are you?
That's great. So Tom will hopefully be joining us. And so we to replace Jonathan, and then we still have one vacancy. And so that may help a little bit, Gillis, in terms of dividing up this work. Speaking of which, are we comfortable, just broadly speaking, at a simple level with Jill and Tom, and then as the capital planning team, Ellen and I as the management reporting and forecasting team, we'll figure out where to loop Kareem in. And then those two come together to create the long-term plan, but we focus on the first two things. First, Ellen, are all of you okay with that?
Well, why don't we see if Kareem will take one of them, and then maybe Tom will get more involved in the other one, so we put all six of us against two things.
Tom Phillips you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tom Phillips, do you have a preference between the capital improvement plan and the management reporting and forecasting?
And I'll go wherever needed.
Tom, would you like to come up to the microphone, please? We can't hear you.
I think he said wherever needed.
Hi there.
Maybe one of you.
Hey.
Wherever needed. I don't have a lot of experience in municipal finance. I do have some experience in management and some of the data inputs.
Well, then,
So, I mean, I would also need some onboarding in terms of, I don't want to ask questions that are simplistic. I'd love to have a conversation offline so that I don't burden the entire committee, but.
No. We don't operate that way. We throw you in and you ask simplistic questions for the whole time. There's no process. Oh, no, that's fine. That's a good point. But given what you said, then I think it sounds like, do we know what Kareem's, Jill, have you talked to Kareem about his interest in capital planning?
No, maybe we ask him first before Tom.
Okay.
Given
Well,
that
or
he's
just at least
involved
the two
in
of them.
budgeting. Yeah, I'm so sorry, but I need to leave.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
thank you.
Well, I think we've accomplished what we need to. I can report back to Eric and Zoe, and I think we should report back to the select board. But I think what we needed to do is to create some work plans for these two different things. Tom, I'm going to suggest that you and Jill get together. We will assign Kareem and hopefully Tom. I'm expecting, Tom, given your background, that you'll certainly be appointed. So we will assign so that we have two groups of three. But I think what we need to do is for each of the groups to develop a work plan and a schedule for what we're going to do and what resource, and so forth, over the next June, July, August, September. It's really the next 4.5 months. And do that before our next meeting, because I think we can't sort of take a month to, basically to get started. But what we should do is each of us should share the work plan with the other. I really believe that for those two tasks, management reporting and forecasting, and long-term and capital improvement planning, we can work independent. I mean, we can coordinate, but we don't need a lot of points of intersection. That the tasks are separate enough for a period of time until they come together in the reporting, in the creation of the reporting. So Ellen, you and I should meet. Tom, if you would ask Jill to meet and sort of develop a work plan of who's going to do what and over what period of time and what the end products are going to be between now and I'd say mid-September. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
And then Tom Phillips will quick. I'm happy to talk to you, Tom, to give you an update. When is the interview with the select board?
I sent an application in. There was a deadline on the application for the 3rd of May. It was suggested that I attend at least one meeting prior to, hence my attendance here. I do not know their timetable. I do know that I've only been asked to do this. Susan Ford suggested I come and at least listen and see if I could help. I have limited skills, but I think this is kind of down my path.
Well, that's great. So I think, so as next steps, Tom, you'll talk to Jill, and maybe send over a work plan in 10 days. Then we'll do the same. Ellen, is that all right? You and I can meet.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll speak quickly to Tom, to Kareem. Tom, so we can perhaps loop you into these planning discussions on the assumption you'll get appointed. And I'll let you know that you should just ask, you know what, when you go out, just ask Nikki in the town manager's office when the interview with the select board is going to be scheduled. It'll probably be at the next select board meeting, which will be, I think 2 weeks from tomorrow. I think.
That'll be fine. I'll proceed at whatever level.
Yeah.
I'd love, once confirmed, I would like to have some type of broad discussion in terms of.
Yeah. No.
Hey, you know, the portal, as an example, the portal we're using for data. Is this, or have we built this? Is this an off the, are we buying it off the shelf? Who maintains it? What are the inputs? I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm gonna ask.
Okay. We can answer those questions.
Well, my suggestion is just take a few minutes with Ellen afterwards. But Tom, my suggestion is let's you and I talk, or you and Ellen, whoever, or multiple people.
I can talk to him after this meeting.
All right, that would be great. But Tom, my suggestion is that you have these discussions actually before your interview with the select board.
Yeah.
So that you can have a point of view. You'll find the interview with the select board to be very high level, and perhaps the only question they'll ask you is, are you available on Mondays at 1 p.m.?
I got that. I think I understand their skill set.
Right. So, but I think it would, it's useful, I think, if you have, a simple point of view that I think X is a priority, or I think Y is a priority, it would help them just can further their, sense. And if they disagree, they'll say so, but I doubt they will. So, and you can form that point of view by talking to me and Ellen and so forth. So.
But I'd love to talk to you independently if that'd be all right.
Yeah.
John, I'm not trying to take up time, but I'll garner some information from Ellen, obviously, and then if I were able to speak to you, potentially, I think I could ask some other questions after I've reflected.
Exactly. No, that'd be perfect. Okay. So is there anything else? Roger, do you have anything to add?
Just one quick thing, Jonathan. I'm much more interested in the management reporting side of things. So if there's any way that you can use me as a resource in terms of being kind of an end consumer of this, I'd be happy to participate.
Fantastic. What we will make you an ex officio member and include you from the beginning. So I will set up a meeting. Ellen, are you okay with that? I'm putting you on the spot here, but I think Roger would make a great addition. That's great, Roger. Thank you.
And just one kind of housekeeping thing. Do you happen to have any examples that are shareable of management reporting for similar kinds of organizations?
I don't think we should look at similar organizations. I think we should look at organizations.
Okay, that's a good point. Actual efficient organizations.
Well, I would just say organizations. I mean, I think I can share with you what I share. I can share with you what I shared with my board quarterly. And I can tell you that these folks were sharp-eyed. They were mostly CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And in 20 minutes, they could figure out where we were and provide advice.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to look at that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So is there any other business then that we have? I think I'm not sure if we have a quorum or not. I'm not sure this is official, but we'll post it on the web anyway. If not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. I think Tom got there first. Ellen, will you second? Will you second it, Ellen?
I do.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned. And Ellen, I'll call you to try to set up a time when you and Roger and I can meet.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you all. Bye.
Take care. Yeah.
How do you do?
What?
How do you do?
How do you do?